It all began with Prince Harry quietly requesting in writing, not through a news conference or public statement, that he be allowed to attend the King's Foundation event. It seemed like a straightforward request, but for Harry it was more than just another date on the calendar. It would have been the ideal time for a comeback, a symbolic return. But instead, Harry received what he wanted. This gathering was large, the kind of royal showcase where heads of state mingle with philanthropists, and the monarchy displays its power in the name of charity. The king's swift and deliberate response: no invitation, no Zoom appearance, not even a courtesy seat in the back row. Nothing was where the story really started, not with Harry's request, but with his firm, unapologetic rejection. This wasn't a case of an overlooked email or scheduling conflict. According to royal insiders, the message behind that silence was crystal clear. The monarchy isn't just moving forward, it's moving on without Harry. Now, here's what makes that so brutal. It wasn't just a little tea party for a seasonal charity dinner. This was the King's Foundation event that served as a public announcement of the monarchy's future, including its power and legacy. Senior royals, prominent celebrities, and cultural icons were all on the guest list. Camilla, Prince William, Princess Anne, and Queen David Beckham and Kate Winslet were present, and even non-working royals like Zara Tindall were given seats. However, Harry's name was missing, and everyone could see that the palace gates were buzzing. A top aide allegedly stated, "The king sees no reason to reward betrayal with visibility." And whether you agree with it or not, that line stuck, because it perfectly captures how Harry is now viewed inside those royal walls, not as a misunderstood son or a man attempting to mend a broken bond, but as a traitor who crossed the line too many times. The interviews, Netflix deals, memoir, and attacks on the family one by one eroded trust. And this denial was the last straw. What really hurts is how public this whole situation became. The guest list was posted online, and when Harry's name wasn't on it, it wasn't just an absence, it was a statement, according to some insiders. Harry had hoped that this would be his chance to return to the royal stage and demonstrate that he could still embody the values of duty and service. But the palace wasn't buying it. The king reportedly didn't even hesitate. No discussions, no back and forth, just a straight-up rejection. "No longer belong here" was the subtext. And for someone who grew up with royal blood in his veins, someone who once walked those very halls as a future leader, it was a harsh slap of reality, Cersei said. Someone finally drew a line in the sand. And this is where things get messy, because according to those close to the couple, Meghan Markle was completely detached while Harry was trying to re-establish their relationship. She didn't co-sign, support the request, or even show interest. Instead, it seemed that she was focused on her own business endeavors in California. Her absence was loud and strategic, and to those who were closely watching, it appeared that she was already taking several steps to distance herself from a situation that was becoming more and more hopeless. Once a royal quarrel, it now seems far more serious. Not a family squabble, but a full-fledged exile that is neither temporary nor negotiable. Inside Buckingham Palace, Harry attempted to turn the page, but the Crown appeared prepared to end the book completely. King Charles hoped that the event would be met with quiet delight rather than a wave of opposition, and this is exactly what happened. For years, aides had been navigating Harry's erratic orbit while attempting to strike a balance between their allegiance to the king and their compassion for his son. But this time there was no more pity. Simply put, devotion has its bounds, and Harry had outlived his beyond. Even some of his erstwhile supporters in the media have begun to change their tone, saying that he cannot uphold duty and honor while leaving the door open for someone who has profited off family conflict. Once applauding him for speaking his truth, critics are now pointing out the trends in the interviews, transactions, and ongoing discussion. The headlines haven't stopped. One more admission, another instance in which Harry's complaints are brought back into the public front and people are fed up with social. Following confirmation of the refusal, the media erupted with trending hashtags such as "No More Harry" and "Royal Reckoning." Tweets poured in, some nasty, others disappointed. But most of them echoed the same sentiment. He made his decision and is now living with it. Owen's popular article perfectly captured the tone. You can't create a book in which you disparage your family and then claim surprise. When you don't receive an invitation to dinner, the public isn't as understanding as it used to be. At a time when the monarchy is exerting great effort to portray power, fans are beginning to acknowledge that the drama is wearing them out and that sympathy is becoming thin. Steadiness and intent, Harry is viewed as a liability because of his existence. Not only uncomfortable, but also risky. In addition, insiders claim that Harry's request included talks about safety plans for him and his family in the event that he returned, but that discussion ended abruptly when officials shut it down early, claiming that Harry's lack of official duties meant he wasn't entitled to the same protections. Harry has repeatedly stated in interviews how losing protection hurts him, made him feel uneasy because it represented his total expulsion from the organization, but from the palace's perspective, it was never personal. Rather, it was protocol without a role, so there's no reason for coverage. Despite Harry's loud protests, the rule isn't changing behind the scenes, and more doors are silently closing, and the palace says there have been early discussions about reviewing Harry's remaining titles. The King's Foundation event's snub may have been the beginning, but the momentum is growing even though nothing is official yet. The Crown is conveying a message not through press announcements or theatrical speeches, but through silence, exclusions, and decisions taken behind closed doors without apologies. All of which are part of a larger, full-fledged separation that is both emotionally and constitutionally significant. Meanwhile, Meghan's quiet in California is just stoking rumors. Some think she's deliberately avoiding him, focusing on her own interests and discreetly letting Harry deal with the aftermath alone. Others feel she's already come to terms with whatever the cause for her absence. Harry hasn't realized that the royal chapter is over and that the door he keeps attempting to reopen is already barred. Her absence has become the subject of a story in which every action and look is scrutinized. Not only is Meghan's lack of involvement noticeable to the media, but insiders have also seen it as a sign of surrender. As if Meghan has already moved on from a conflict that Harry still believes he can win, as well as division within the Sussex camp. Hollywood isn't turning out to be the security net Harry and Meghan had hoped for when they first arrived. Returning from royal duties, the promise of complete freedom, multi-million-dollar deals, and talk show appearances created a lot of attention. But now that the shine is wearing off, key platforms are slowly pulling away and Spotify abandoned them. Harry's name doesn't carry the same weight as it once did, according to insiders. And the aura that previously accompanied being a royal rebel is eroding in favor of exhaustion and scandal. Netflix is apparently cooling down, but two execs aren't. Saying it aloud, no one wants to be caught in the crossfire of royal drama, so producers are apprehensive and businesses are cautious. His entire public identity was built on his position within the monarchy even as he stepped away. That connection gave him leverage, but now that link is fraying every time. The palace makes a move to distance himself, said a public relations strategist after Harry started to appear like a risky investment in an industry based on public favor. He came in as royalty, but he's becoming tabloid, and that shift is brutal without his royal ties front and center. Without access to the titles and the events, what does he have left that sets him apart? He can still do interviews and write books, but the impact isn't the same without the royal seal. It undermines everything he stands for. The danger is not only being irrelevant, but also turning into a character in a tale that nobody in the UK wants to read anymore. Discussions are moving toward permanence. Royal analysts are discussing precedent and legacy. Some are drawing comparisons between Harry's predicament with previous instances of royal outcasts, relatives who deviated too much from the institution and were discreetly removed from public service. The difference is that everything is occurring now. In the public eye, worldwide, the most telling sign came not in a statement but in the guest list from the King's Foundation event. The names weren't just chosen for status, they were handpicked to symbolize values. The Crown wants to promote unity, loyalty, disability. Every move, decision, and silent message is being played out in front of millions of people, and King Charles isn't flinching. On the contrary, he's finding strength in the clarity that the monarchy must come before everything else, even blood. David Beckham, Kate Winslet held people in high regard for their public grace's decision to include them, while excluding Harry wasn't merely a social one. It was a symbolic one that told the public that Harry no longer fit into the narrative the monarchy was telling with Meghan, focused on her own brand. The palace closing its doors and the American spotlight growing colder. For Harry, that kind of eraser hits hard. He wasn't just left off the stage, he wasn't even included in the conversation. And there wasn't even a pre-recorded message or digital presence. Just absence, and that absence was louder than any speech. There is still time for reinvention, but it won't come from chasing royal relevance. If Harry wants to create something lasting, it must come from somewhere else, something new, something independent. Because if the monarchy's message is clear, then this is the page that has turned and his name is no longer on it. Harry is currently navigating a new chapter, one without a crown, one without a guaranteed audience.